My name is Angela, and I am in Oklahoma. And I am a yoga teacher. And so I'd like to start the talk with a little bit of breath and hand movement, I guess, if you will. So to help, kind of ground us, and specifically me, I'm experiencing, nerves. So if you want, you can bring the hands kind of towards the center of the body. And then on the inhale, open the hands. So we're expanding. And you can go to whatever expansion is comfortable for you. So inhaling and opening, and exhale, floating the hands back into center. And so doing this a few times, really allow the breath to lead the movement. We're so frequently, humans in general are kind of racing around, um, you know, task to task, and our bodies are moving so quickly that it's kind of it's forcing our breath to follow. And instead, let's allow the breath to lead. So, taking a few more of these. And then on the next exhale here, maybe gather the hands at heart center. Feel the temperature of your hands against the chest, feeling the weight of the hands as well. Notice the sensation of the heart beating. And just pausing here with your breath and with the sensation within. Then we can take another kind of deep breath in through the nose and hold at the top. And then exhale, let it fully out and release the hands gently in the lap. All right. So today I'm going to be speaking about compassion. And compassion is a really complex topic. And so I'm going to be kind of going at it from the angle of kind of the basic components of it. And my kind of the definition that I like of compassion is it's the wish to alleviate the suffering of self or another. And so I was reading a book a few months ago, and I really recommend the book. It's called Down to Earth Dharma by Rebecca Bradshaw. I can put that in the chat later. But she really kind of outlines two components that make up compassion, and that is empathy. So, the ability to touch in and connect to the pain of yourself or another, and action. So, taking action to lessen or alleviate the suffering is also, she's saying, a necessary component. And thank you. I think Reverend Chris put that in yeah, there you go. Thank you. And so, so that got me thinking, once I read that is, I consider myself to be not necessarily a self-compassionate person, but a compassionate person to others. Um, but then she goes on to kind of outline there's these near neighbors to compassion that look similar to compassion, but really aren't. And she talks about two, and I'm going to give a couple of examples, an example for each one. So the first one would be that you're taking action, but there's a disconnect of the emotion, I guess. So you're not really touching in, you're not providing that empathy component. And this would be, so a personal example of this, my husband is really upset that I'm going to but in the past, for a long time, it's different now. But I would have surgeries, and I would be, trying to recuperate, and he would give me the supplies I needed, like if I needed food, he would drop off food. He would drop off like, the thermometer so I can check my temperature or medication, but then he'd leave. And like he wouldn't talk to me, he wouldn't sit with me, nothing. And so that, in my opinion, would be an example of this first near neighbor. He was supplying the action of the physical needs that I was, requiring in the moment, but he was missing that empathy, and that it feels very cold and disconnected and removed. And then the second one is one that it came to light that I do frequently, and that's empathetic distress. And you're like too consumed by the emotions within yourself or, another. And then that prevents you from doing any action to help lessen or alleviate it. And so an example of that really highlighted it for me, that I do this, was when we were in California over Thanksgiving holiday, we were going on excursions. My husband wanted to take a tour of the Hearst Castle, but me and the kids didn't care about that. We wanted to go out to like the Big Sur area, and it's kind of within the same kind of area. So he dropped us off, and he proceeded to go to the tour, and so we were without a car, and we were about an hour and a half away from our hotel anyway. So my daughter came down with a pretty significant fever and was very ill, and she just was just sobbing, and she's a very kind of stoic in a sense person. She doesn't show sadness or vulnerability, I guess. And so for her to be sobbing like that, it was pretty bad. And it was, we were in this idyllic area. We had like this like blanket on the grass with the ocean in the background, and it's very dreamlike up there, and it's my favorite place actually. And she's just in so much discomfort and crying, and I held space for her. I allowed her the freedom to cry, and I comforted her. I mean, and I tried I tried to, I guess, I mean, I definitely loved on her, but I wasn't trying to shift her uh, mind away from her suffering. I was allowing her to be in her suffering. And it was continuing, though, for like an hour or more. And it kind of dawned on me at that time, I may be doing her a disservice, just allowing her to kind of be in that suffering. And maybe I should try to, for lack of a better term, distract her from it. So, I started asking her about, her favorite books that she's been reading recently, and to tell me more about those. I was trying to point out, in our surroundings of, oh, do you see those birds flying up there and stuff like this. And so it kind of and I saw a shift in her, like she was still experiencing, the illness, but it wasn't as uh, distressing because I had kind of pulled her out of it to some degree with that action. And so I don't know, it just highlighted for me just how I tend to um, miss that action component for my own suffering as well, because I'm so lost within the storm, I guess, of the emotion, and so I thought that was really interesting. And so I'd like to offer some simple practices that, and I'm sure that you all may be familiar with all of these, but I think it's a nice reminder that we can utilize some simple practices that I believe contain both of the components of compassion, that empathy and action, to provide compassion to ourselves and to another, because these practices can be utilized for others or to ourselves while also, offering compassion to another. And so I believe that, before implementing kind of any of these practices, I think it's necessary to first hold the space for ourselves or for the other, and really be a witness to what is arising and allow what is arising to be there. I think that's also another component that I tend to struggle against, is I find I'm acknowledging that I'm anxious, or whatever, and I'm fighting against it, I guess, in some way. I don't want it to be there, but instead, welcoming what is there to be there, and then and then name it, and name it in a way, instead of, which is, I know it's easier said than done, but like, because I always am saying, I am anxious, but maybe try to rephrase that and say anxiety is present or anxiety is arising, because to rephrase it in that way helps to find a little bit of distance, so you're not identifying with the emotion. It's an emotion that you're experiencing, but you're so much larger than that emotion. And so, I think that first step of holding that space, empathizing with self or other, is important, and then moving to some type of soothing practice for the action component of it, to and we're not saying that we want it to go away. It's just we're acknowledging that it's there and it is welcome, and at the same time, let's lessen this discomfort, maybe, if we can, and taking these kind of action steps to do so, one of which being is a quick body scan. And, I know that there's body scan meditations that are, 30 minutes or longer, but it can be as simple as, a 10-second little scan of, the main areas that you are aware that you tend to hold tension in the body. And so, just kind of touching into those areas, and then invite that softening. And then, I'm gonna kind of list out these practices, but then we can practice it real, kind of probably going into meditation. I'll lead it, I'll guide it with these practices, and then we can continue with the meditation, if that works. Some breathing techniques, breathing. We're very aware of breathing and focusing on our breath. And there are ways, though, that can be, that you can utilize the breath as a way to invite uh, calm into the body, but also the mind. That's another thing I'd like to mention, that especially if you're, prone to kind of getting, kind of staying in that storm of emotion, it can be hard to work at the mind level. And so it can be, or I've found at least, that it can be easier sometimes to enter through the body, taking these body type, practices, and inviting that calm into the body helps to calm the mind and quiet the mind a bit. And so there's a couple of ways in which, I've practiced the breath, one of which is a bumblebee breath, and I'll lead us through that. But it's basically you're humming on the exhale, and that helps to create the vibrational quality kind of in the mouth and chest, which is very grounding and centering. And it also helps extend that exhale. Anytime that we can extend the exhale, is can be definitely a soothing, calming practice for our body and mind, because I don't know the science really behind it, but it's my understanding that when we're in a more trauma stress response of fight or flight, we're breathing faster and more shallowly, so that way we can get more kind of, I think, oxygen or something to our muscles, so that we can run or fight. And so the very act of us slowing down our breath taking those longer exhales is signaling to our brain that we are in a safer environment and that our body can relax and start to soften so that it can start that rest, digest kind of state of being. Um, Now, I would like to also add that, a lot of these body-based type practices can be triggering for folks with, PTSD and a trauma response. And so, if that is the case, there's other ways that you can practice that's still grounding and soothing. And I invite you to kind of explore and discover, but for me at least, I've you can take it out of yourself a little bit, like, and kind of open up the senses. So you're opening the sense doors into maybe the sounds or the sights around you in your environment, and in that way you're kind of opening up the space and not narrowing down fully, like just in the body. You're opening that outward, and so that may be helpful. And then also just even like if you find yourself like ruminating a lot or something, um, changing the position of your body in space can be helpful as well. So if you're like seated and you're like ruminating a lot and kind of stuck within that, then getting up and even just standing up or walking across the room, changing something, can be enough to kind of jar you back into kind of the present moment a bit. So those are just some practices that maybe we could, you could try out and see if any resonate with you. And with that said, I'll go ahead and lead us into the meditation, um, with our regular meditation, what we say for the meditation. But then I will guide us with some of these practices, so that way we can try it and see. But I don't know where the meditation thing is. Okay, here we go. Okay, so let us get started. So we'll get settled kind of again into our meditation posture, and whether that be, oh, good, I'm glad. Whether that be, seated or maybe lying down. Um, oh, thank you, Brother River. Have a lovely day. Getting settled into your posture, and just being present to the needs of your body right now. A lot of the times, I don't know, maybe it's just me. I feel like I have to like be seated and, be in this like perfect, um, posture. And it's like, if that doesn't feel good, then just, do what feels good for your body. So, getting settled, and I will lead us in here to meditation. Okay, so starting meditation. Let us be at peace with our bodies and our minds. Let us return to ourselves and become wholly ourselves. Let us be aware of the source of being, common to us all and to all living things. Evoking the presence of the great compassion, let us fill our hearts with our own compassion towards ourselves and towards all living beings. Let us pray that we ourselves cease to be the cause of suffering to each other. With humility, with awareness of the existence of life and of the suffering that are going on around us, let us practice the establishment of peace in our hearts and on earth. Body, breath, and mind held in perfect oneness, I send my heart along with the sound of this bell. May the hearers awaken from forgetfulness and transcend the path of anxiety and sorrow. Listen, listen, this wonderful sound brings me back to my true home. So bring your awareness as we start this meditation to your breath. Notice the rise and fall of the abdomen with each breath. Continuing to settle into your posture. and begin to notice any areas of your body that may be feeling tension. So maybe checking in with the jaw, the neck, your shoulders, the belly, anywhere at all that you tend to hold tension, gently scanning the body and noticing any tension or discomfort that may be present, and then invite that softening to occur within the body. And often our tension can be so ingrained. We hold ourselves maybe in kind of a tight way that we've become kind of used to that sensation. And so sometimes we may feel that our body isn't tight, but if we place our mindful awareness on the area, often we can soften even more. And, over the course of, our practice today, but just in general, that tension, even if it's softened, it'll start to creep back in slowly. And so checking back from time to time and inviting that softness, frequently is a helpful way to reprogram kind of how our body holds itself. And we're going to practice this bumblebee breath. And with this breath, we're going to inhale in through the nose. And then on the exhale, we're going to hum. And I'll lead us in this breath. Feel free to practice it if you wish. If not, that's perfectly all right too. This is your practice, and I invite you to honor your needs. We'll do this specific breathing for 5 breaths, and we'll go ahead and begin. So inhaling in through the nose, then exhale. And returning to a natural breath. And notice how your body feels right now. Maybe there's a residual effect of the vibrational quality in the body. Just noticing and being present for what is arising. We'll continue with the rest of our meditation in silence. I do invite either continuing maybe that breath or another breath, or maybe opening your sense doors, expanding your awareness to the environment around you, noticing any sounds, any smells or sights if your eyes are open, to help facilitate kind of that mindful, grounded presence. And I will ring the bell when our time is finished.